The soft hum of conversation filled the large hotel restaurant as guests enjoyed their dinner. It was a Friday evening, and the place was busier than usual. Every table was taken, glasses clinked, and the scent of roasted meat and fresh bread floated through the air. Among the staff moving quietly between tables was a young waitress named Lily Carter. Lily was in her mid-20s, but there was something older in her eyes, a kind of tired wisdom that came from carrying too much responsibility too early. She wore a plain white shirt and black apron, her dark hair neatly tied back in a bun. She smiled politely as she served, careful never to spill a drop of wine or make a sound with the dishes. To most guests, she was invisible, just another face in the crowd of hotel staff. But if someone looked closely, they would notice the quiet grace in her movements. She carried herself with calmness, her steps light and steady, almost like she had rhythm inside her body. Lily worked 6 days a week, sometimes double shifts. She didn't complain. She couldn't afford to. Her mother had been sick for a long time, and the hospital bills didn't wait for payday. Every tip mattered. Every hour she worked meant medicine, rent, and food on the table. There were moments, though, when she looked at the grand piano in the corner of the hotel's ballroom and her heart ached. It was a beautiful black piano, polished, elegant, and untouched most nights. She had played one like it once years ago before her world had changed. When Lily was little, music had been her dream. Her father, before he passed away, used to sit beside her as she practiced. He wasn't rich, but he believed in her talent. "You've got something special, Lily," he would say, tapping her shoulder proudly. She remembered those days vividly. The smell of old sheet music, the feel of smooth ivory keys, and the sound of her father's soft humming as she played. Back then, she dreamed of becoming a pianist, performing in concert halls, maybe even traveling the world. Her teacher had said she had real potential. But when her father died suddenly, everything fell apart. Her mother couldn't keep up with the bills, and Lily had to quit music school to help at home. That was nearly 7 years ago. Since then, her life had become a blur of work and responsibility. The piano became a part of her past, something she thought about often but never touched again. Every night, when she walked past the ballroom to clock out, she would stop for a few seconds to look at that piano. Sometimes, when the room was empty, she imagined herself sitting there playing again. She could almost hear the soft echo of her fingers on the keys, the gentle rise and fall of notes filling the quiet space. Then she would blink, remind herself that dreams didn't pay the bills, and keep walking. The other waiters liked Lily. She was quiet but kind, always ready to help if someone fell behind. There was an older waiter named Sam who often teased her gently. "You've got that look again," he'd say when he caught her staring at the piano. "What look?" she would reply, pretending not to understand. "The look of someone who belongs up there, not here," he'd say, nodding toward the stage. Lily would laugh it off. "I'm fine right here, Sam," she'd say. Though deep down she knew it wasn't true. Most nights ended the same way. When the last guests left, she would help clear the tables, fold the napkins, and polish the glasses until they shone. Then she'd walk home through quiet streets, the cool night air brushing against her face. She lived in a small apartment with her mother, who stayed in bed most days, her health too fragile to move much. "Was it busy tonight?" her mother would ask when Lily got home. "Very," Lily would say, hanging her jacket on the chair. "Did they treat you well?" Lily always smiled. "Of course, Mom, everything's fine." She never told her mother about the rude customers, the long hours, or how tired she felt. There was no point worrying her. Instead, she would make tea, sit beside her mother, and listen to old piano recordings on her phone. Her mother loved those moments. "You should play again someday," her mother would whisper. "Maybe," Lily would answer softly, but she didn't believe it. Weeks passed like that, one after another. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Still, something in her refused to die. Every time she heard music in the restaurant, maybe from a wedding party or a rehearsal, her heart would leap just a little. She couldn't explain it. Even after all these years, music was still part of her soul. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday evening in early winter. The hotel was preparing for a large corporate event, one of the biggest of the season. The ballroom was decorated with white roses, silver candles, and crystal glasses that sparkled under the lights. Guests were expected from several big companies, including a few well-known business owners. Everyone on the staff was nervous. The hotel manager, a sharp, strict woman named Mrs. Green, wanted everything to be perfect. "No mistakes tonight," she warned. "The guests we're hosting could bring us future business." Lily nodded along with the rest of the team, though her stomach was in knots. She had worked through plenty of stressful nights, but the pressure tonight felt heavier. There was one more thing that made the event special. A live pianist had been booked to perform throughout the evening. He was known for playing soft, elegant pieces that made the atmosphere more luxurious. Lily was secretly excited. She hadn't heard live piano music in a long time. Around 6 o'clock, as the staff prepared the tables and arranged flowers, she overheard the manager talking on the phone. Her tone grew sharper with every second. "What do you mean you can't make it?" she said, her face darkening. "We're starting in an hour. You can't just cancel now." Lily paused mid-step. The pianist had canceled. After hanging up, Mrs. Green let out a deep sigh. "This is unbelievable," she muttered. "We don't have anyone to play tonight." One of the waiters tried to lighten the mood. "We could just use a playlist, right?" Mrs. Green frowned. "A playlist won't impress these clients. They expect class. They expect live music." Lily quietly went back to setting the napkins, trying to stay out of the way. Still, she couldn't stop glancing at the piano. It sat there silently in the corner waiting. She didn't say anything. It wasn't her place. But something inside her stirred, a small, nervous thought that maybe, just maybe, she could help. A few minutes later, as guests began arriving, one of the hotel's regulars, a wealthy man named Mr. Harrison, entered the hall. He was known for his arrogance and loud voice. He noticed the empty piano immediately. "No music tonight?" he asked, his tone half joking, half mocking. Mrs. Green forced a smile. "Our pianist had an emergency, but we're handling it." Mr. Harrison laughed. "Handling it? That's a shame. A party without music feels empty, don't you think?" He turned his head, scanning the room, and his eyes fell on Lily, who was arranging glasses nearby. She froze when she noticed him looking. "You there," he said suddenly. "You keep staring at that piano. Do you play?" The words hit her like a jolt. She hadn't realized anyone noticed her glances. I used to," she stammered. Mr. Harrison grinned. "Used to? Well, why don't you play now?" Several guests turned their heads at his words. The room grew a little quieter. Lily's face went pale. "Oh, I couldn't," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I'm just part of the staff." Mrs. Green stepped in, trying to smooth things over. "That's not necessary, Mr. Harrison. We'll have music playing shortly." But the man wasn't done. "Come on," he said with a smirk. "Let's see what your staff can do. Maybe we'll be surprised." Laughter rippled through a few nearby guests. Lily felt her chest tighten. She didn't want to be the center of attention. She hadn't played in years. And even if she wanted to, she was wearing her work clothes, not the kind of thing a performer would wear. Yet when she looked at the piano again, her heart tugged painfully. A part of her missed it so much it hurt. Mrs. Green looked torn. "Lily, do you actually know how to play?" Lily hesitated, then nodded slightly. "A little," she whispered. The manager sighed. "We don't have another option. Just play something simple, soft background music." "Can you do that?" Lily's hands felt numb. I can try." As she walked toward the piano, she could feel every pair of eyes on her. The chatter in the room faded. The air felt thick with expectation. She could hear her heart beating fast in her chest. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling slightly. The black surface of the piano reflected her nervous face. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Her fingers hovered over the keys. For a moment, she didn't move. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses faded into silence. She closed her eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to play freely, to let go of fear, to just feel the music. Then softly, she pressed the first key. The note echoed through the hall, delicate and pure. She pressed another, then another, forming a gentle melody. It was shaky at first, hesitant, but the sound was beautiful. No one spoke. The guests who had been laughing now watched quietly. Something about the way she played drew them in. The melody began to flow, her hands remembering what her heart had never forgotten. For Lily, it was like stepping back into her old life for a moment. The piano wasn't just an instrument, it was a voice telling her story. And though this was only the beginning, that single moment would change everything. Lily's hands trembled as they rested on the piano keys. For a moment she forgot where she was. The noise of people talking and glasses clinking faded, replaced by the soft echo of her heartbeat in her ears. She had not played in years, and now, surrounded by strangers in fancy clothes, she was being watched by dozens of eyes. But something deep inside her wanted to try just once more. The first notes came out uneven, almost unsure of themselves. Then as her fingers began to move, a quiet calm washed over her. The years of practice she had buried inside her heart started to come back. Her hands began to remember what her mind had forgotten. The melody became smoother, softer, and full of emotion. The music floated through the air like a warm breeze. It wasn't loud, but it filled the whole room. The laughter and talking stopped. Even the waiters froze in place, surprised by the sound coming from their quiet coworker. The tune she played was simple but beautiful, something she used to play for her father when she was little. It carried memories, sadness, and hope all at once. When the last note faded, silence filled the hall. For a second, nobody spoke. Then slowly, people began to clap. The sound started small but grew louder until the entire hall was applauding. Lily's cheeks flushed red. She stood up quickly and stepped back from the piano. "I'm sorry," she said softly, almost whispering. "I didn't mean to interrupt." But Mrs. Green, the manager, shook her head, her eyes wide with surprise. "That was incredible, Lily," she said quietly. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Lily didn't know what to say. "I used to take lessons when I was younger," she replied. "It's been a long time." The guests were still whispering among themselves. Even Mr. Harrison, the man who had teased her earlier, looked impressed. He gave a small nod and raised his glass. "Well," he said with a smirk, "I guess I was right to ask." The moment passed and Lily returned to her duties, but something inside her had changed. She tried to focus on serving drinks and carrying plates, but she could still feel the vibration of the keys under her fingertips. It was like the music had woken up a part of her that had been asleep for years. After the event ended, Lily helped clean up as usual. Mrs. Green stopped her near the piano. "You really saved us tonight," she said, her voice softer than usual. "You made a wonderful impression." "Thank you," Lily smiled shyly. "I was just trying to help." "You did more than help," Mrs. Green replied. "You made the evening special." That night, as Lily walked home under the dim streetlights, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The applause, the looks of surprise, the feeling of playing again, it all felt unreal. She had spent years thinking her music didn't matter anymore, but for a brief moment she had seen how it touched people. When she reached home, her mother was still awake, sitting in her chair by the window. "You're late tonight," she said gently. "There was a big event," Lily replied, taking off her coat. "Something unexpected happened." Her mother looked at her curiously. "What kind of something?" Lily hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "I played the piano again." Her mother's eyes widened. "You did?" she said, her voice full of surprise. "How did that happen?" Lily told her the whole story. The missing pianist, the teasing guest, the moment she sat down and played. Her mother listened closely, her eyes shining with quiet pride. When Lily finished, her mother reached out and held her hand. "I knew one day you'd play again," she said softly. "You were born for it." Lily laughed, though her eyes grew wet. "It was just one song, Mom, that's all." "One song can change everything," her mother replied. The next day, when Lily returned to work, the other waiters greeted her differently. They smiled, joked, and called her the pianist. Sam, the older waiter, patted her on the shoulder. "You kept that talent a secret," he said, shaking his head. "You should have told us you could play like that." Lily blushed. "It's been so long. I didn't think I could anymore." "Well, now everyone knows," Sam said with a grin. "Word's going around fast. Even some guests asked about you this morning." Lily laughed nervously. They probably just found it amusing that a waitress played at a party. But deep down she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there. That evening, Mrs. Green called her into the office before her shift. Lily entered nervously, unsure if she had done something wrong. The manager smiled and gestured for her to sit. "I wanted to ask," she began, "would you be willing to play again? Just a few songs, maybe on weekends. Nothing formal, just to add something special for our guests." Lily was stunned. "You want me to play? But I'm not a professional. I just," Mrs. Green interrupted gently. "You may not see it, but you have something real." The guests loved it. I think it would be good for everyone. Lily hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no. She was afraid of failing, of being laughed at again. But another part of her, the one that still dreamed, wanted to say yes. I'll try, she said finally. That night she played again. Not for a crowd this time, but just for herself and a few guests who stayed late. Her fingers felt more confident now. The notes flowed smoothly like water. She played simple, gentle songs, melodies that made people smile. The hotel lights reflected off the piano surface, and Lily felt peace she hadn't felt in years. When she finished, one of the guests came up to her. "You play beautifully," the woman said kindly. "It's rare to see someone play with such emotion." Lily thanked her shyly. It was strange hearing praise again, but it warmed her heart. As weeks passed, the small performances became a regular thing. People started asking about her by name. Some guests even came back just to hear her play again. The hotel manager was thrilled. It gave the place a touch of warmth and charm that music always brings. Lily's confidence grew little by little. She started practicing at home on a small keyboard she bought years ago, but had kept in the closet. The sound wasn't as rich as a grand piano, but it was enough to keep her fingers moving. Her mother loved listening, sometimes humming along softly. Those evenings became their favorite moments together. Still, there were times Lily felt unsure. "It's strange," she told her mother one night. "People act like I'm special now, but I'm still the same person. I'm just doing what I used to love." Her mother smiled. "That's what makes it special, dear. You never lost your gift, you just forgot how much it mattered." The months rolled by and the hotel's reputation grew. People talked about the waitress who plays the piano. Some called it charming, others inspiring. One evening, a guest even recorded her playing and posted it online. She didn't know it at first, but within days the video began to spread. Comments poured in, people touched by her story, her humble expression, and the way her music carried so much emotion. "This girl plays from the heart," one comment said. Another wrote, "You can feel her soul in every note." When Lily found out, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She had never imagined that a simple act of courage born from embarrassment could reach so many people. Her life didn't change overnight, but something inside her did. She began to believe in herself again, not as a waitress who once had a dream, but as a person who still had one. Every time she sat at the piano now, she played not just for the guest or the hotel, but for her father, for her mother, and for the part of herself that refused to give up. The sound of the keys no longer scared her. It felt like coming home, and though she didn't know it yet, the music she played that night was only the beginning of something much bigger, a chance that would soon come knocking, one that would change her life forever. The evening air outside the hotel was cool and crisp, and soft lights glowed from the tall windows of the ballroom. Inside, Lily sat at the piano again, her fingers resting lightly on the keys. It had become a part of her life now, a quiet rhythm that gave her purpose. Every weekend she played, and every time she did, the world seemed a little brighter. She didn't feel the same fear that had once made her hands tremble. The piano was no longer something distant or unreachable. It felt like home again. When she played, it was as if she could speak without words, share her feelings without saying a thing. She wasn't performing for attention anymore. She played because it filled her heart with peace. Guests often stopped to listen. Some smiled, others looked thoughtful, and a few even closed their eyes as the music carried through the air. Lily could feel their emotions, how a quiet song could calm them, or how a soft melody could bring a memory back. Music had its own kind of magic, she thought, and she was grateful to be a part of it again. One Sunday afternoon, after a long shift, Mrs. Green handed her a small white envelope. "This came for you," she said. A guest left it at the front desk. Lily frowned slightly. "For me?" "Yes," the manager said with a faint smile. "Seems like you made quite an impression." When Lily opened the envelope, she found a handwritten note inside. It read, "Your music reminded me of my daughter. She used to play with the same heart. Thank you for bringing back beautiful memories. A grateful guest." The words were simple, but they made Lily's eyes fill with tears. She held the note to her chest for a moment. She had never thought her music could touch someone like that. That little message became something precious to her, a quiet reminder that what she did mattered. From that night on, Lily's heart felt lighter. She began to look forward to every chance she got to play. When she wasn't at the hotel, she practiced at home on the old keyboard she had kept in the closet for years. It didn't sound perfect, but it was enough. Her mother would sit nearby in her chair, wrapped in a soft blanket, listening with a peaceful smile. "You sound happier these days," her mother said one night. "It's been so long since I've seen you glow like this." Lily smiled as she played a gentle tune. "Maybe I just needed to remember what makes me happy." Her mother nodded slowly. "You never really lost it, dear. You just forgot how much music meant to you." Those words stayed in Lily's mind long after she stopped playing. She realized how true they were. She had let her responsibilities, her worries, and her fears bury her dream, but it had never disappeared completely. It had been waiting, deep inside her, for a moment to return. Weeks passed, and Lily's music became one of the quiet highlights of the hotel. Guests often asked for her name or left small notes of appreciation. Some even tipped her just for playing, though she never expected it. The other staff treated her differently now, too. They smiled when she played and often said how proud they were of her. But life, as it often does, had more surprises waiting. One Friday evening, the hotel was hosting a large charity event. The ballroom was filled with important people: business owners, city officials, and local reporters. The tables were covered in white cloths, golden lights sparkled from chandeliers, and the air was full of chatter and excitement. Mrs. Green wanted everything to be perfect, and she had personally asked Lily to play during dinner. "Soft and elegant," she said. "Something that makes people feel comfortable but still impressed." Lily nodded. She had prepared a few gentle pieces, nothing too fancy. As the guests settled in, she took a deep breath and began to play. The music filled the hall, flowing like water. Her fingers moved gracefully, and her eyes softened as she lost herself in the melody. Conversation slowed, and several guests turned to watch. There was something about her expression, a quiet sincerity that drew people in. Among those listening was a man sitting near the front. He looked to be in his 50s, neatly dressed, with kind but curious eyes. He watched Lily closely, listening with deep focus. When she finished her first piece, he leaned toward Mrs. Green and whispered something. Later that evening, as Lily took a short break, Mrs. Green approached her with a smile. "Lily, that man over there wants to speak with you," she said softly. Lily looked up, surprised. "Me? Why?" "He said your playing reminded him of someone," Mrs. Green replied. "Don't worry, he seems very kind." Lily wiped her hands nervously on her apron and walked over. The man smiled warmly as she approached. "You must be the pianist everyone's been talking about," he said. "I'm just a waitress who plays sometimes," Lily replied shyly. He chuckled. "You're much more than that. I'm Thomas Reed. I work with the city's art foundation. We host music events, and we're always looking for talent with real heart. When I heard you play, I felt something genuine. Not just skill, emotion. That's rare these days." Lily didn't know what to say. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means a lot." Mr. Reed smiled. "Have you ever thought about performing outside the hotel?" Her eyes widened slightly. "No, I haven't. I wouldn't know where to start." He handed her a small card. "If you ever change your mind, call me. We'd love to have you audition for one of our community concerts. It's nothing huge, just a local event, but it could be a good place to share your music." Lily took the card with trembling hands. She nodded politely, unsure how to respond. After he left, she stood there for a long time, staring at the card. The idea of performing in front of people terrified her. She wasn't a professional anymore. What if she wasn't good enough? But at the same time, something inside her stirred. A tiny spark of curiosity, maybe even hope. That night, she told her mother about the conversation. "He said I should audition," Lily explained, still sounding uncertain. Her mother smiled gently. "And what do you think?" "I don't know," Lily said. "It's scary. I haven't played outside the hotel before. What if I embarrass myself?" Her mother reached for her hand. "You won't. You've already been brave once, remember? The night you sat at that piano when everyone was watching. That took courage. You can do this too." Lily looked down, thinking about it. Maybe her mother was right. That first night had scared her more than anything, but it had also changed her life. Over the next few days, she kept thinking about Mr. Reed's offer. She tucked the card into her notebook and carried it with her everywhere. Even though she hadn't decided yet, every time she played at the hotel, she imagined what it would feel like to play for a real audience again. One night after her shift, when the ballroom was empty, she sat at the piano alone. The lights were dim and the room was silent except for her quiet breathing. She opened the lid, took a deep breath, and began to play one of her favorite pieces, one she had learned as a teenager. As she played, memories flooded back. Her father sitting beside her, smiling proudly. Her mother humming softly in the kitchen, her younger self full of dreams and plans. By the time she finished, tears filled her eyes. She wiped them away quickly, but she was smiling. She realized then that she didn't just want to play for others, she needed to play for herself. The next morning, Lily made a decision. She found the card and dialed the number. "Hello?" came Mr. Reed's voice. "Mr. Reed, it's Lily from the hotel," she said nervously. "I'd like to try the audition." He sounded genuinely pleased. "I'm glad to hear that. Come by next Thursday afternoon. No pressure, just play what feels right." When Thursday came, Lily almost backed out. Her stomach was in knots and her hands were sweaty, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. "You've already been brave once." The small auditorium wasn't crowded, just a few people sitting quietly as she took her place at the piano. She could feel their eyes on her, but she tried to block everything out and focus on the keys. She began to play, slowly at first, then more confidently as the melody filled the room. The sound was soft but full of feeling, hope, sadness, and strength woven together. When she finished, there was a long silence before gentle applause broke out. Mr. Reed stood and smiled warmly. "That was beautiful," he said. "You have something real." The day of the community concert arrived, and Lily felt a mixture of excitement and nerves unlike anything she had experienced before. She woke up early, her stomach twisting with anxiety. Her fingers itched to play, and yet her heart raced as if warning her about the unknown. This wasn't the hotel ballroom anymore. This was a real stage in front of people she didn't know. People who had expectations and perhaps she feared, people who might judge her. Her mother was quietly supportive, preparing tea and helping her pack a small bag. "Remember, Lily," she said softly, "you are playing for yourself as much as anyone else. Let the music speak." Lily nodded, gripping the small bag in her hands. She left her apartment and walked to the local community center. The streets were alive with morning energy, children heading to school, neighbors chatting on the sidewalks, and the occasional car rushing by. Lily tried to calm herself with the normalcy of life outside the hotel. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she reminded herself why she had chosen to do this. When she entered the concert hall, she was struck by how different it was from the hotel. The stage was larger and the seats stretched far back. There were music stands, microphones, and an air of expectation. Volunteers bustled about, setting up programs and arranging chairs. The sight made Lily feel small, almost like she didn't belong. "Hello, you must be Lily," a friendly voice said. It belonged to Mr. Reed, who had invited her. "We're so glad you're here. Don't worry, just play as you did in the audition. That's all anyone needs." Lily gave a small nod, though her nerves didn't ease much. She peeked at the piano on the stage. It was larger than the one in the hotel, shiny and imposing. She took a deep breath and approached it carefully, feeling the cool wood under her fingertips. Backstage, other performers were warming up, tuning instruments and chatting. Some were young students, others more experienced musicians. Lily felt the familiar pang of insecurity. She was a waitress who played piano for hotel guests. These people were performers who trained for years. Would she measure up? The audience slowly began to arrive. Parents, friends, and music enthusiasts filled the seats, murmuring softly. The hall was filled with anticipation. Lily's stomach knotted tighter with every passing minute. She watched Mr. Reed greet the audience and introduce the performers. And then she realized it was almost her turn. A volunteer approached her and whispered, "You're on in 5 minutes. Just breathe and play what comes from the heart." Lily nodded. She walked toward the center of the stage, her hands clammy, her knees slightly shaking. When she sat down at the piano, she could hear her own heartbeat over the soft chatter of the audience. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, recalling the first night she had played at the hotel. The fear, the tremble in her hands, and then the feeling of her music touching people's hearts. She wanted that again. As the lights dimmed slightly, signaling the beginning of her performance, Lily took a deep breath. She pressed the first key and the note rang out clearly in the hall. At first her fingers felt uncertain, but soon they began to move with confidence, guided by memory and emotion. She played a piece she had learned years ago, a simple melody full of tenderness and longing. The audience fell silent. No coughs, no shuffling feet, just the soft sound of music flowing from the piano. Lily could feel her nerves melting away as the melody took over. She let herself feel every note, the happiness, the sorrow, the hope that had been hidden in her heart for so long. Halfway through, a woman in the front row leaned forward, tears glistening in her eyes. A young boy sat quietly listening intently, his small hands folded on his lap. Each note Lily played seemed to reach them, and she realized how powerful music could be in connecting hearts. For the first time, she wasn't just playing for herself or for a hotel audience. She was playing for every person who had ever needed comfort, who had ever lost something they loved, who had ever needed to feel hope. The final chord rang out, echoing in the hall. The silence lasted for a brief, almost infinite moment before applause erupted. Lily's eyes opened and she was met with smiling faces, some teary, some nodding in admiration. She stood up quickly, feeling both relief and exhilaration. Mr. Reed approached her, his face beaming. "That was extraordinary, Lily," he said. "You've touched people tonight. Truly touched them. How do you feel?" Lily hesitated, searching for words. It felt like home," she finally whispered. "Like this is where I'm supposed to be. You belong here," he said firmly, "and we'd love to have you perform again. This isn't just a one-time thing." For the next few weeks, Lily began to receive invitations to perform at other small concerts and community events. She still worked at the hotel during the week, but her weekends now carried a new meaning. Every time she sat at the piano, she felt alive, and she could see that her music was making a difference to others. Her mother watched from the sidelines during these performances, her eyes always filled with pride. "I knew you could do it," she would whisper after each concert. "I always knew." Even the staff at the hotel noticed the change in Lily. She walked taller, smiled more often, and carried herself with a quiet confidence. People started calling her the pianist, and not just as a joke. It was as if the world had opened a little wider for her. One afternoon, a reporter from a local newspaper came to interview her at the hotel. She was nervous at first, unsure how to answer the questions. But when she spoke about her journey, the music, and what it meant to her, she felt a sense of pride. Her story was inspiring to others, proof that courage, even in small doses, could lead to unexpected opportunities. The newspaper article was published with a photo of Lily at the piano, her fingers poised above the keys, a soft smile on her face. People from the community reached out, offering congratulations and invitations to play at different events. Lily felt overwhelmed by kindness and support she had never experienced before. Through it all, she never forgot why she had started. She still worked at the hotel to help her mother and manage her daily life, but music had become more than a part-time joy. It was her voice, her connection to the world, and her way of showing that even quiet, unnoticed people could shine. Then came a special evening that changed everything further. The hotel was hosting a large gala, one of the most prestigious events of the year. Lily had been asked to play throughout the evening. As she sat at the grand piano in her favorite corner of the ballroom, she noticed familiar faces in the crowd, guests who had first applauded her months ago, now returning to hear her again. But that night something extraordinary happened. As she played a familiar piece, the room fell completely silent. People stopped talking, guests held their breath, and even the waiters paused in their work. Her music floated across the room like a gentle wave, touching everyone present. When the final chord echoed and faded, the applause that followed was unlike anything Lily had ever experienced. People rose to their feet, some wiping tears from their eyes, others simply standing in awe. Mr. Reed, who had been invited to the event, stood beside her, clapping the loudest. "You've become more than a pianist," he said softly. "You've become an inspiration." For Lily, the words were humbling. She had never sought fame or recognition. She only wanted to play music that mattered. That night, she realized she had done exactly that. In the weeks that followed, Lily's life continued to transform. More invitations came, more opportunities arose, and her music began to touch an even larger audience. And yet, despite all the attention, she remained grounded. She still made time for her mother, still worked at the hotel, and still played with the same quiet passion that had first carried her through those anxious nights. Through it all, one truth remained clear to Lily. It was never about the applause, the invitations, or the recognition. It was about music itself, the way it could lift hearts, heal pain, and bring people together. And she had finally found a way to share that gift with the world. The journey that had begun with a single, nervous night at the hotel piano had grown into something far beyond her imagination. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and self-doubt, and had emerged stronger, braver, and more alive than ever before. Lily now understood that talent alone was not enough. Courage, passion, and persistence were the keys that had unlocked her true potential. As she left the gala that night, walking beside her mother under the twinkling city lights, Lily felt a quiet contentment settle over her. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time in her life, she felt truly ready to embrace whatever came next. She had discovered her voice, her strength, and the power of her own music, and nothing could take that away from her. The weeks after the gala were unlike anything Lily had ever experienced. Invitations to perform at small local events, charity functions, and even a few school recitals started to arrive. Each one made her nervous, but the nervousness was different now. It was mixed with excitement and possibility rather than fear. Lily still worked at the hotel during weekdays. She still served drinks, cleared tables, and smiled politely at guests. But her evenings and weekends were filled with music, and every time she sat at a piano, she felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. It wasn't about recognition or praise anymore. It was about sharing something deep and personal. One morning, she received a message from Mr. Reed. He had organized a special community concert, one that would feature several talented musicians from the city. He asked if she would be willing to perform a few pieces. Lily hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. The idea of performing in front of a larger audience both thrilled and terrified her. Her mother noticed the change in her daughter. "You're glowing," she said one morning as Lily sipped tea at their small kitchen table. "I can see it in your eyes. Music suits you. You've always been meant for this." Lily smiled, her fingers tapping gently on the rim of her cup. "I never thought it would feel like this," she admitted. "I thought it was just a hobby, something I had to give up. But now," she trailed off, looking out the window at the street below. "It feels like life again." She spent the next few days practicing relentlessly. Even with her hotel shifts, she found time to sit at the small keyboard at home, running through old pieces and trying new ones. Her hands grew stronger, her confidence returned, and with every note she felt her fears diminish. When the day of the community concert arrived, Lily woke up early. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves. She dressed in a simple but elegant outfit, one that made her feel confident without drawing too much attention. Her mother helped her with a small scarf around her shoulders and handed her a thermos of tea. "You'll do fine," she said, squeezing Lily's hand. The concert hall was buzzing with energy when Lily arrived. Volunteers moved about, adjusting microphones, checking lights, and arranging chairs. Lily looked at the stage where a shiny black piano waited for her. Its polished surface reflected the bright overhead lights, and she could feel her nerves rising. But she also felt something else, a quiet determination, a steady reminder of why she had chosen to return to music. Mr. Reed greeted her warmly. "Lily, it's so good to see you. Remember, play like you always do. Let the music come naturally." She nodded, taking a deep breath. The other performers were warming up, some chatting, some silently practicing their instruments. Lily sat at the piano, feeling small at first, surrounded by talent. But she closed her eyes and let herself remember the first time she had sat at the hotel piano, the moment when everything began. As she began to play, the room fell into a hush. Her fingers moved gently at first, then with more confidence as she got lost in the music. She played melodies she had practiced countless times, but each note carried emotion, memories, and hope. The audience leaned forward, listening intently, captivated by the sincerity in her performance. Midway through her set, she noticed a little girl sitting in the front row, eyes wide with wonder. The girl's mother whispered something, and the girl's gaze stayed fixed on Lily. For a moment, Lily felt a connection with her, an unspoken understanding that music could touch even the youngest hearts. She played on, letting the emotion guide her, and when the final chord rang out, the room erupted in applause. Lily stood, her cheeks flushed with a mixture of relief and joy. People came up to her afterward, smiling and shaking her hand. "That was beautiful," one woman said. "You've inspired me." Another guest, a man with a gentle voice, added, "Your music carries something real. You remind us that even ordinary lives can have extraordinary moments." Lily smiled, trying to absorb the warmth and encouragement. It was overwhelming, but in the best way possible. She realized then that her music wasn't just entertainment. It was a bridge, connecting people, reminding them of hope, joy, and the simple beauty in life. That night, as she walked home, the city lights reflected in her eyes. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the long hours at the hotel, the first night she had nervously sat at the piano, the encouraging words of her mother, and Mr. Reed's guidance. It had all led to this moment. Back at home, her mother was waiting. "How did it go?" she asked, eyes shining with pride. "It was amazing," Lily said, sinking into the chair beside her mother. "I've never felt anything like it." People actually listened. They felt the music, and I felt understood. Her mother reached for her hand. "I told you, Lily, your gift was never lost. You just needed a chance to share it." The following weeks continued to bring new opportunities. Lily was invited to perform at small local theaters, community events, and even a few school music programs. Each performance built her confidence, and each audience reminded her why she had chosen to return to music. She still worked at the hotel, of course, but it no longer felt like the entirety of her life. Her work there was steady and necessary, but her music had become her identity, her joy, and her passion. Even on the most exhausting days, a few hours at the piano could make her feel like herself again. One evening, after a performance at a local arts center, a young man approached her. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said quietly. "My daughter has been learning piano, and she was discouraged because she felt she wasn't good enough. Hearing you play tonight reminded her that music is about feeling, not perfection. She's excited to keep practicing again." Lily felt a lump in her throat. "I'm so glad," she said softly. "That's exactly what music is meant to do. Encourage, comfort, and inspire." At home that night, she reflected on her journey. She had gone from being a quiet, unnoticed waitress to someone whose music could touch lives. She had faced her fears, embraced her talent, and discovered a world she had thought was lost to her. Even the hotel guests began to notice. Some would return specifically to hear her play, complimenting her and leaving small notes of appreciation. The hotel management even offered her a chance to hold small weekend recitals. Lily accepted, not for fame, but for the joy of sharing her music in a familiar space where it all began. One chilly evening, as she walked home with her mother, she felt a sense of completeness. The streets were quiet and the city lights shimmered in puddles from a recent rain. "It's funny," she said. "I never imagined my life could change like this, all because of music. All because I took that first step when I was scared." Her mother squeezed her hand gently. "Life has a way of surprising us," she said. "But you've always had the courage inside you. Music just helped you find it." As the months went by, Lily's reputation as a pianist grew. She received more invitations, sometimes even small offers from local music schools and foundations to teach or perform. But she remained humble, remembering where she came from. Her mother's health improved slightly, and Lily continued to support her, balancing her work, her performances, and her family life. One quiet evening, sitting at the piano in her small apartment, Lily reflected on her journey, from the timid girl who had stared longingly at the hotel piano, to the waitress who nervously performed in front of strangers, to the pianist who now touched the hearts of her community. Her life had been a story of resilience, courage, and discovery. She realized that life wasn't just about achieving dreams. It was about taking chances, even when fear held you back. Her music was no longer just a hobby. It was a voice, a way to connect, heal, and inspire. And that, she knew, was priceless. The journey that had begun with a simple act of courage had transformed her life completely. She had discovered her strength, her voice, and the power of following her passion. And as she played the final notes of the night, soft and lingering in the quiet room, she knew that this was only the beginning. Her music would continue to grow, touch lives, and remind her, and everyone who listened, that even the most ordinary life could create extraordinary beauty.